typical day for me is waking up at around, I don't know, 7, 8 a.m. probably. Having breakfast, I always have breakfast before training, and then depending on the day, as triathletes we have some very different days. So some days I might have 3 or even 4 sessions, and some days I might have just 1. So it varies. I think it's important to have a power meter if you want to start being more serious and setting goals with your training, because it's like the problem with the other parameters like speed is that it's very dependent. You know, like running, it's okay because speed is almost always the same, but cycling, if you have a tailwind, if you have a headwind, obviously it's important to have an actual parameter there that you can always measure, and it's also the best way to see progress. And also, if you're doing a triathlon, then it's really important that you pace the race evenly, or in your right zone. So I think having a power meter is really important for getting the best out of your race. Started training with a power meter when I was 19 for the first time. It was on my first sponsor's bike. So yeah, I did many years without a power meter, and then started using it more and more. Now it's become obviously a norm, and everybody has a power meter on their bike. And yeah, it's a very important parameter. It means you can measure the load of a certain session, so you know, like, there's a big difference between doing 3 hours at 150 watts and 3 hours at 250 watts, and so it means you can measure how much stress it's had on your body. I was technically professional at the age of 14, already racing on the French Grand Prix circuit. So in short distance, this is what we call a professional level, but there wasn't a switch where I stopped a job and went straight into triathlon, because I've been doing it since I was 4, so it was just a very natural progression. But actually really making a living out of it probably only started when I was 19 or 20. I train maybe 50% of the total volume is probably on the bike, and then the other is the rest is on the run or the swim. So yeah, cycling is the discipline where I spend the most amount of time, because it's a sport that's lower impact, and yeah, you can do a lot more training without being too tired. And it's also the discipline where we spend the most time in a race, so it makes more sense to be stronger there. I train maybe 25 hours a week approximately on average, and where I train in the foothills of the Pyrenees, in the Pyrenees Oriental it's called, and yeah, it's not far from Perpignan. That's where I do most of my training, and yeah, I have an amazing set of roads to train on. We have big climbs, but also some flat roads along the coast and stuff. So yeah, the more I travel, the more I like it there to train. So I use my Assioma pedals in every session. Depending on the session, I will look at the power meter data more or less. Sometimes on recovery rides afterwards, I only focus on technique, and so I can look at maybe like my pedal smoothness or my left to right balance. But then for key sessions, I just target a certain wattage. So I'm just looking at if I have to do like 3 times 20 minutes at 350 watts, then it means I can just check on the power and make sure I'm not going over or under. The biggest change is obviously just knowing how much progress you're making, because before you couldn't really know. You know, you could only base yourself off results in races, but now you can see clearly in training if you are progressing or not. So yeah, that's the advantage of a power meter. So a key moment when the power meter was really important for me was when we attacked the World Championships. Obviously the power was very high, but I took a risk, and in my head I told myself that for 30 minutes I could really push the power close to my FTP, and then I would bring it back down. But it's very important on these hard climbs like in Nice to not go over your threshold. So just making sure I was sitting very close to my threshold, but not over. Yeah, so that was a key moment where I was using, like really focusing on the power. There was a period where I came really close to giving up when I was about 18, 19. Yeah, I was just quite depressed and a bit lost in my life. So yeah, but luckily I have a supportive family and amazing people around me that kind of motivated me to stay in the sport and try and accomplish my dream. I think motivation and discipline is quite easy because we see it like also as a job. So I get paid to train, so I have to train. But my deep motivation before, it was always to be world champion, I guess, for my family and everybody that's always come on training camp at my house, to kind of just elevate the family business. And now I've accomplished this, so my motivation is changing slightly, and I think now my goal is really to inspire kids to coming to triathlon and do the sport, just make it a bit more common. So yeah, definitely inspiring the younger generation is my next motivation.